Humans always seem to be ahead of the curve for reasons the galaxy never knew. Not in ways that are obvious, in ways that are subtle, curious, small. Missiles that have a slightly higher hit rate on targets. Shields that have a slightly higher deflection grade than others. Cannons that can calculate a slightly higher speed and rate for target. Armor plating that seems ever so slightly better. We've never figured out why. They seem to have an ever so slightly higher calculation speed and computation quality than we ever did, but not by a huge margin, but enough that it gave them an edge in most cases they could easily exploit to flip the tide of any event. There was first contact when the Vakarian pirate raid hit them during negotiations. They reloaded slightly faster than the pirate ship, and in the end won the battle, saving ambassadors from kidnapping. Then there was the marker crash of 287. It was thanks to them having a slightly faster calculation speed they mitigated a lot of the damage on the market and saved the taxpayers billions of credits from yet another buyout. Then there was that time they accidentally predicted a nebula storm that would have killed billions from a solar fallout. Accidental, my carapace. We had spent the better part of the last few decades trying to figure out why and how they were always so far ahead of the curve. Digitally, at least. Always only slightly better. Like they had consistently figured out a way to improve on everything the rest of us had. Not so much to be a problem, but just enough to stay out of trouble. Just enough to be slightly ahead of everyone else. Just enough. It made most of us very paranoid. Very paranoid indeed. Sometimes, when they did something impressive, it made us think, these are the average ones. Or things like, wait, weren't they behind on this last time? And other such questions. The smart ones started to dig deeper and try to figure out what was happening. It was true that human industry was on another level compared to the rest of the galaxy. Quality and quantity, too. Many ships do not make good ships when they have no crew in them. Sure, they could outproduce us, but how do they maintain the quality difference? Training, maybe, but our Starfleet operatives train for years to get where they are. Some of the best in the galaxy, if I do say so myself, but humans manage to do it slightly faster, slightly better, slightly stronger, somehow. Their armor always manages to get just the right amount of angle to deflect a cannon shell. Their troops happen to be just behind that wall when a grenade goes off. Their scientists manage to somehow find all important breakthroughs at just the right time. You get the idea. Maybe it's just good luck. I may have an answer. It's all to do with their calculation systems and computers. We all know humans, any excuse to be lazy. As a consequence, they automate almost everything they can if they get a chance. I knew a guy who spent hours and hours creating a complex industrial-grade mechanical arm setup just so that he wouldn't need to do dishes anymore. Yeah, we all know how lazy they can be, and it all seems to stem from their need for this automation. Slightly faster, but not much, just enough. A little bit more, not too much. It seems to be fair, to quote, a modus operandi or modus of operation. Humans aren't the only species capable of pattern recognition, and I think I found a pattern. Board office workers at a certain time of day. What the hell am I talking about? Something called the Leeting hour. Yes, I know it doesn't make sense, but it is a thing. It's an actual thing. This requires context. The Leeting hour is a concept I came up with myself. Something odd, a quirk about human behavior, especially in digital physical engineering. But it happened enough that I can see it as not an isolated thing. It happens almost everywhere you can find a human engineer that has nothing better to do, but can't risk going into anything serious due to varying limitations, including other projects. Human engineers, digital or physical, will occasionally, at a certain time of day, shrug and start working on other projects, a private project with private code or blueprints, and just work on it bit by bit, over the course of months, or even years. And it's always at roughly the same time, too. 10 minutes, they stop what they are doing if they have nothing to do, and just do their own thing. We don't do it. We don't have the level of autonomy. For us, it's work until the job is done. If the job is done wrong, do it until you get it right. But this is how they do it. This is how they manage it. This is the part of my report that gets a bit scary. There are billions of humans. This much we know. Despite the size of their empire, the population is the only real thing that beats the galaxy at large. Now imagine, if you will, a tenth of those humans are engineers of a sort. Now picture every one of those humans stopping what they are doing at a certain time of day to produce a private line of code, working on a secondary project, or quietly fixing a bug in a system they've been putting on the back burner for a while. Because other things need attention. That's millions of singular projects, millions of ideas and operations, trillions of lines of codes and drawings, all going on at once. Millions of humans, secretly or not secretly, working on their variation of the next big thing, all at roughly the same time, depending on where they are. This is the Leeting hour. Feel terrified yet? Feel overwhelmed yet? That is the secret to their capabilities. They always seem to have one or two guys or girls working in the background to make working in the foreground easier. It's how they calculate armor resistance and deflection angles so precisely. They have an engineer or programmer somewhere in the background always trying to improve the code or blueprints. There is always at least one human somewhere that somehow has a better idea on how to do a thing than the skill and resources to do that very thing. They use this Leeting hour as means to accomplish this. We need to do the same. We need to institute the same thing as policy, not just a random ideal. No, I've used the phrase Leeting hour about a dozen times so far, and I haven't explained it, so here's what it is. It's a play on words. This so-called witching hour is a thing that happens on human homeworld, typically post-midnight period, often 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., in folklore believed to be when supernatural beings like witches, demons, and ghosts are most powerful, and the veil between life and death thinnest. Historically linked to midnight, it is now used colloquially for any time of heightened chaotic activity. This fits well with the concept of sudden strained chaos when humans just randomly decide to stop doing a thing and do something else. Leeting is a term I made up, but is loosely based on a style of coding from way back in the day. I learned about it while browsing the internet while bored. For the sake of reference, please institute the so-called Rule 34 safety protocol in your browsers and search engines while browsing the human internet. If you want a reason, let the phrase human oncothodium porn sit in your brain for a few seconds, and let your brain attempt to vomit itself out of your ears in retaliation for thinking about it. In short, LEET, L33T, or 1337, for short, ELITE, is an internet-based symbolic language that replaces Latin letters with similar-looking numbers and ASCII symbols to signify elite hacker status or bypass filters. It is commonly used in gaming and online forums. Some freaks of nature manage to turn this obscene, self-validating ideal into a full programming language and now use it frequently. The Leeting hour is a short 10 to 20 minute period around 13:37 p.m. or 13:57 p.m., usually on Hump Day or Wednesday if it's more commonly known. Why? I have no idea. Sometimes it's not Wednesday. It depends on the officers and engineering sometimes. They can be almost any day, but generally it's around the same time frame. If it's the Leeting hour, why is it only 10 or 20 minutes, you ask? That's apparently part of the joke. Nobody actually gets Hugh and Huey yet. It's been over a century since we've had them, and we still don't get the more obscure parts of their sense of humor. Just, don't think about it. It will drive you crazy. An unspoken rule, a joke among the community. Millions upon millions of engineers and programmers privately working 10 to 15 minutes a day on unknowable projects, either of their own kind or helping their workplace in some way. Millions of projects, all being worked on or completed when they have nothing to do or be scared about, all roughly at the same time. These engineers usually sometimes share their projects, and senior engineers pick them up and fix bugs or mistakes, then return them. It's a very loose community, but a community with a very strict rules. Don't steal code or blueprints, always supply attribution, and they all have this thing called GitHub that lets them upload code for review, public record, and sometimes public use. The same codebase can be used by anyone. I got access to one engineer's public codebase, and by all the ancients, it was insane. 600,000 lines of code over 2 years from his efforts in the short time it takes to open a file. Remember where he left off and then type a few lines before getting back to work. This is how they did it. This is how they managed it. Billions of lines of codes being exchanged and swapped around by millions of engineers, each one making his or her own changes or fixes. This code in particular was used in mass production facilities, several different systems used for automation of assembly machinery. I politely asked the creator if I could use the code in one of our factories to test it out, and as per community rules, as long as I applied attribution and uploaded the results publicly and without being paid for it, I could use it. It was a complex process, putting two separate systems on the same network, but by the gods, the contrast was absurd. Our systems produced 25 units per hour. Theirs, using the exact same machinery, produced 29 units per hour. A slight difference, but small numbers do add up over time. It only takes a few droplets to make an ocean if given enough time, and this was the physical manifestation of that concept. Think about it. Imagine, if you will, a mechanical arm that installs a component to a vehicle frame. This mechanical arm can install 10 of these components every hour. With human programming, it can move slightly faster by optimizing its movements. Go slightly to the left up here instead of to the left over there. From 10 components an hour to 12. Then the system is optimized again, this time in a different way. The power exchange systems are updated. Now the mechanical arm has the same speed, but it uses less energy to do the same job. That's millions of credits saved on energy costs. Now, the arm gets a replacement part, a new joint actuator that is made slightly more ergonomically that makes it move faster. That's 13 units per hour. Then the actuator gets a software upgrade, reducing its failure rate, cleaning up errors. That's 14 units per hour. More upgrades, more software updates, new parts. Eventually, the old mechanical arm is dismantled and replaced by a brand new arm with all the old ones upgraded and hardware brand new. That's 25 units per hour. Then a bored human finds a bug in the code and fixes it, optimizes it, and comes up with something new that's better. That's 26 units per hour. Don't you see? Droplets in an ocean. A constant rainfall of new droplets of code, convenience, speed, and processing, drop by drop, bit by bit. The ocean of code and blueprints grow larger and larger, ever expanding. Buckets of code being removed, cleaned, and thrown back at that same ocean, where someone finds it again and cleans it more, and adds more volume. Humanity, as it stands, represents a critically serious threat and a definitive blessing, all in the same breath. All it will take is that one guy who can collect all the code. One bored engineer with the right access and the right credentials. That one guy with that one spark of knowledge, and that ocean of code will break its banks and drown us in the tide of success. All it'll take is for one human to get an inspiration of some kind, a spark of thought, and he will be able to optimize the system to oblivion. It'll still stop being 20 units per hour and go to 200 units per hour. Do you see how bad this will get? If this flood happens, we are doomed. They'll be able to overproduce any goods, crash the market a dozen times over, and find the easiest route from A to B, even if they have to go straight through a star. And they will likely figure out a way to do it. Don't you see how bad this is? Or how good it can be? Humans can figuratively and literally optimize their way into the key to the universe if given enough time. And they have more than enough time. Be prepared for it. It'll either be doom or ascension. And judging by how humans are generally nice people, I would bet on the latter. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.